Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field educate, inform and inspire the community to live a healthier and balanced life and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is men's coach and registered nurse, Kosta Michalopoulos, and he's here to talk to us about masculinity and the 4 pillars. Welcome to the program, Kosta.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa.
In terms of masculinity, what are the 4 pillars?
Throughout my journey over the last 25 years in healthcare, I've worked with lots of men. And throughout my personal journey as well, I've realized that everything comes down to the 4 pillars of how we function as men: emotions, beliefs, habits, and our relationships. And if we break down all these 4 pillars, it pretty much covers our emotional and intellectual and physical being as men. So emotions, what are we feeling? Understanding exactly what's happening inside of us. And we often find as men, our vocabulary, our emotional vocabulary can be quite limited. Understanding and giving a voice to what's happening inside, it's actually quite powerful. Beliefs. What are values? What do we believe? How we have been raised as men? The societal expectations, the cultural expectations, religious, where we live, our parents, our little society, how it's impacting us and the way we think and how we function. That creates all our beliefs. Habits. How do we do things? What do we actually do? We have good habits, bad habits. How do we put in practice all our beliefs, their emotions, and how do we function as men? And then ultimately relationships. And I break down the relationships into 2 parts: a relationship with ourselves and a relationship with outside world, whether it's a relationship with our loved ones, family, colleagues, nature. So under these 4 pillars, we understand as men what do we need and how do we do things.
In the past, do you think that man looked different to how man is today?
Absolutely. So let's put in context of the 4 pillars how men used to function, let's say 500 years ago, where survival was completely different than what it looks today. So men didn't have the luxury of speaking about emotions. They needed to show up. They needed to be the provider, they need to be the protector. But things have changed. Fortunately or unfortunately, we don't live in this age anymore. So we live in an age where technology, health has increased so much. So we have the luxury of looking after ourselves, being a bit more curious about what's happening. And I think that's the biggest difference between the men of, let's say, even 20 years ago and the men of today. What do we need? How do we actually get that? And how do we communicate that with our loved ones, with ourselves? So I migrated in Australia in 2001, and looking back, the young man that I was back then, and what was the norm for me, what was the narrative, my narrative as a man in Greece in the 90s and the man that I am today, it's completely different. I was told the story that I needed to man up, I needed to be tough and resilient and stoic, which there's nothing wrong with it, but being able to find that balance, and that balance that I never had in my life up until a few years ago, and now I'm the man where I can understand my emotions and I can express my emotions, and I can define my beliefs and my values, and that can sort of resonate through my habits, and then ultimately through my relationship. So I think this is the biggest difference. The man of today knows what they want and what they need, knows how to communicate that, has the emotional intelligence and the emotional language.
For someone going through a self-discovery journey, do you have any advice?
Absolutely, absolutely. From personal experience, it takes time. Long time. It's not this linear journey where the start and the end. It has the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, the wins and lots of losses. So patience is paramount. But the most important thing is awareness. Allowing the knowledge to come through, awareness of our emotions, and I'm coming back to the 4 pillars, awareness of our values, what actually is very important to us, understanding that. How can we change something if we don't know what we're actually changing and why we're changing this? So awareness is very, very important. And then self-love. Talking to men about self-love, it's not easy. It's not easy. We know how to give love, but we don't know how to receive love. As a therapist, it's easy for me to look after people. It's easy to have the advice and the time and the knowledge and the care, but when I try and give that to myself, I just don't know how to do that. And that takes a lot of practice. And that takes lots of, again, ups and downs and lots of mistakes to be able to look at yourself with care and love and take the time. And I'm not talking, when I say self-love, a lot of men will think, putting moisturizer on my skin or sunscreen. It has nothing to do with that, which is very important. That's very important as well, looking after our physical body. But I'm talking about looking after this, ourselves, and having that inner dialogue. That little, you want to call it devil or angel that sometimes sits on the shoulder and just keeps talking. Having the conversation with that little person and see what it has to say, but not from a place of judgment that we don't want to have this conversation, but from a place of love. The other thing as well, as you're going through the self-development journey, and we're saying the ups and downs, it's very crucial to understand when do you actually need the help. And that help might be just reaching out to loved ones and expressing what's happening, but then that might look into seeking professional help. Might be speaking with a counselor, speaking with a psychologist, speaking with your local doctor, and see what can they actually offer. Because it's not an easy journey. It's not a journey that is going to be defined, what we said before, within a few months or a few years. It's an ongoing journey. And having the professional help, it's paramount.
That's really informative. Thanks so much for being on the program, Kosta.
Thank you so much for that, Melissa.
If you'd like to know more about the 4 pillars of masculinity and Kosta, go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, another guest with an interesting topic.